Welcome, I am Emir, and let's look back in hindsight. Longhorn, the lost, never released, failed version of Windows. Much regret because it was scrapped. Development was reset, and the world got Windows Vista instead. Well, the world did get Longhorn. It was called Vista. A code reset does not mean the project started from scratch. That would have to be the topic of a separate video. But that's not how people think. They romanticize pre-reset Longhorn as Totga. Because dun 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 dun. But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all? But Longhorn pre-reset was doomed, not by the reset. Or is it reset? Just like interesting English. Was pre-reset Longhorn doomed by WinFS? .NET? Managed code? It was doomed to begin with. Or even before it began. How? We must understand Windows development at that point, as well as our good friend marketing decisions. We must go back to Windows XP. No, we have to go deeper, way back to Windows 2000. One of the goals for then called NT 5.0, that was not a code name. One of its goals was for Windows NT to become the code base, not only of Microsoft's business-oriented operating system, for example NT 4.0, but also its home-oriented OS, Windows 9X. Why? That. But you see, Microsoft had a lot of ambitions for NT 5.0, such as the many features planned for Cairo, which I will cover someday in Emir's BTIN. Features except for WinFS's predecessor, OFS. However, NT5, and not just NT5, experienced delays again and again. Windows 98, Internet Explorer 4, gee, I wonder why. But I focus on NT5, NT 5.0, Windows 2000, because Microsoft changed strategy in reaction to its 4-year development. A long development cycle that would be beaten, of course, by Longhorn. Dave Cutler, chief architect of Windows NT, said in an interview by Dave's Garage, David Plummer, Daveception, in an interview on October 2023, that Windows 2000 workstation and server had the same codebase. After Windows 2000, Dave Thompson, in charge of server development, hey, Dave is a common name. And it's also the name of a barbarian or barbarian. Barbarian? Dave Thompson said that they would need 3 years to do the next server version. In response, Chris Jones, in charge of workstation development, said, and I quote Cutler, "So this is a codeception?" Man, we're referencing Inception a lot today, huh? To quote Cutler, quote, "Oh, I can't live with that. Says consumers don't expect the quality that the server people do. We can do it a year and a half." So we said, Cutler talking about the server team, well, we can't do that, right? So thereon, we split the code base. The server went one way, and the consumer vision went the other way. End quote. In an interview by Paul Thurot in January 2003, Thompson, the other Dave, then Vice President of the Windows Server Product Group, said that the split, quote, "lets us focus on the server customers who want it rock solid rather than right now. Desktop software has to ship in sync with PC Maker sales cycles. There is no holiday rush with servers." End quote. Again, marketing. Not the first time this has happened, and certainly it won't be the last. To be clear, the Daves are talking about the split between XP and Server 2003. Let's lay down the timeline to be clear, and also to tease future Emir's BTIN on Windows. Windows 2000 Client, Workstation, and Server were developed at the same time. Microsoft initially plans that Neptune would succeed 2000. Microsoft announces Windows Meh. Neptune maybe becomes the consumer NT to succeed Meh, with Odyssey as the next business NT. Microsoft cancels Neptune and Odyssey in favor of Whistler, and then splits Whistler into XP, Client, aka Consumer/Home Edition, and Workstation/Professional, Whistler Client, and Whistler Server, Server 2003. There's another reason Microsoft wanted to get the next Windows Workstation/Client version out as soon as possible. To make an NT for consumers and replace Windows 9X once and for all. A dream since April 1997. Fun fact, the infamous Windows Meh was not supposed to exist. 98's successor was supposed to be the next NT after 5.0/2000. This version was expected, quote, 3 to 4 years away, unquote, from 1998, meaning 2002. Microsoft may have thought this period was too long, so we got Meh. And then, just as how Meh was rushed, maybe that explains why Meh is unstable? I don't know, I never used Meh. Except those alpha builds. You may have seen videos of them. Wait, no, those were not alpha builds, those were beta builds. And then, just as how Meh was rushed, maybe, so was XP, definitely. In order to finally consign Windows 9X and the preceding DOS line into the dustbin of history. Again, maybe citation needed. But I don't get why Microsoft wanted to rush XP. Because it planned to ship the next Windows version, Blackcomb, only a year after XP. That's just 2 years between 2000 and Blackcomb, unlike the 4 years in between NT 4.0 and 2000. Of course, Blackcomb was later pushed back by Longhorn. Let's illustrate Windows development following the XP Server 2003 split with this graph by Thurot, and hit 2 birds with 1 stone by also debunking the myth that pre-reset Longhorn was based on the XP codebase. The green line represents the main branch. Once XP neared release, it was spun off to a separate branch. The main branch then worked on Server 2003, not XP SP1, Service Pack 1, that was a separate branch. You can see the main label in Server 2003, that time called .NET Server, in Server 2003 build tags. That label, main, refers to the main branch. When Server 2003 neared release, it was spun off to a separate branch, DN Serve, .NET Server. The main branch then worked on Longhorn pre-reset. So, finalizing Server 2003 and development on Longhorn pre-reset took place at the same time. Separate branches. Therefore, Longhorn pre-reset was based not on XP, but on pre-release Server 2003 code. Before Server 2003 was split into its own dedicated branch, DN Serve. Splitting branches, so 2 Windows versions could be worked on at the same time. If that's not a sign of rushing things, I don't know what is. Maybe. Citation needed. In the run-up to RTM, release to manufacturing, Windows Server 2003 went through intense bug testing, called the War Room. However, it does not follow that any War Room fixes in the DN Serve branch would be applied to the other branches. The XP branch, the XP SP1 branch, and the main Longhorn pre-reset branch. Speaking of Longhorn, just like XP, Microsoft wanted to rush Longhorn. Don't let pre-musician era Jim Alchin fool you. Maybe. There was supposed to be no Longhorn server, with the next server after 2003 being codenamed Blackcomb. No server release means no intense War Room bug fixing. Remember, Server 2003 was already in a branch separate from the main branch. Any bug fixes in Server 2003 were not necessarily applied to the main branch, which was now used for Longhorn. Also, any problem that could not be fixed in time for Server 2003 was kicked to Longhorn. Eventually, Microsoft announced that there would be a Longhorn server after all. It would see the light of day as Windows Server 2008. Back to the XP Server 2003 split. What was the result of that? What was the result of the rush to release XP? This. And this. Forum posts describe how problematic XP was a year after its release, meaning from 2002. I was already alive at that time. I am old. But not paintbrush old. Cutler said, quote, "It wasn't long before the consumer software hardly would build and hardly would run. In the meantime, the server branch, we fixed a whole bunch of security problems. A whole bunch. And we might even have done some security update. But there was a lot of stuff that went into the server effort to fix security bugs. And none of that stuff was fixed in the other one. Well, we finally shipped XP, and XP was wildly successful. But it was buggy. But then, there was a big turmoil about security. And that's about when the buffer overflow attacks started. And so we stopped. And in fact, the other thing was as soon as they shipped XP, that became the code base for Longhorn, which was Vista. Hey, it's me. I already fact-checked that one. XP was not the code base of Longhorn pre-reset. Back to Cutler. So they're continuing on with this buggy code base without all those security fixes in it. The server division basically is developing the server stuff but fixing security problems. End quote. Add to these bugs the code red and Nimda viruses, which pushed Microsoft to put in place trustworthy computing, emphasizing security. The buffer overflow attacks mentioned by Dave Cutler, Blaster, Nachi, and So Big, add Sasser to that, they all came later. Later meaning after Server 2003 was released, or right around the time of its release. Maybe. Trustworthy computing had to change just a year in to prevent similar attacks, and would lead to delays with both XP Service Pack 2 and Server 2003 SP1. I guess the war room was not enough for Server 2003. And if that were so, a war room would not be enough to save Longhorn pre-reset. But hey, that's what you get for rushed products. Short-term profit, long-term delays. Hence the reset. Alchin, Cutler, both saw the reset as necessary. I hope it's obvious by now. But if not, here goes. The reset did not doom Longhorn. The reset saved Longhorn. Otherwise, Microsoft would have released a buggy, unsecure mess. Anyone who has used pre-reset builds would know how much WinFS, the sidebar, the Explorer leak, how much they were a pain in the neck. And also behind. These new features had bugs. Of course, expected these were new. But the problem was that even the foundation itself was full of holes. What did we learn today, everyone? Let's work backwards. Longhorn would not have been reset if its code base were secure. The Longhorn code base would have been secure if Longhorn, had undergone the War Room treatment. Longhorn would have undergone the War Room treatment had Server 2003 not been spun off into a branch separate from the main branch before the intense War Room treatment. Server 2003 would not have been spun off into a branch separate from the main branch had Microsoft not been in a rush to make Longhorn. Microsoft would not have been in a rush to make Longhorn had Microsoft not been in a rush to make XP. Microsoft would not have been in a rush to make XP had it not minded the marketing practice that, quote, desktop software has to ship in sync with PC maker sales cycles, unquote. Microsoft would not have minded this marketing practice had it been able to develop Windows 2000, NT5, or 5.0 in a shorter time than 4 years. Microsoft thought that it would have developed 2000 in a shorter time than 4 years. Had it split client/workstation and server into separate branches to begin with. The reason Windows 2000 took a long time to develop, spoilers, was not because of that split. You'll have to wait for my video on Cairo for that. This decision to split XP and Server 2003 development in a rush to deliver XP doomed re-reset Longhorn. Since the reset, Windows Client and Server editions were developed side by side with each other. Longhorn post-reset, Vista, and Server 2008, although Server 2008 would RTM a year after Vista, 7 and 2008 R2, 8 and 2012, 8.1 and 2012 R2, 10 anniversary update in 2016, and 10 October 2018 and 2019. Server 2022 is a different story because of 10X and 11. That whole mess is a story for another time. But hey, let me know what you think. Maybe it's my video that's full of holes. Comment, please. Please like and share this video across social media. Subscribe to Emir's BTIN and ring the bell so you won't miss any of my videos. My Cairo one, for example. Watch other Emir's BTIN videos. There's a lot on Windows. Support the show on Patreon, on PayPal, or through crypto. Thank you to my sibling G-G Arts for my spiffy avatar. Check out and support her work by clicking the links in the description. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and take care.